You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hey everybody, happy November. Welcome to the show. I hope everybody has recovered from the sugar rush of Halloween.
More or less.
More or less.
We'll see.
I still got some candy squirreled away, so I like to dole it out over time. Well, you know, Rachel, you mentioned during your episode last week the dangers of stagnant water. And this kind of was a topical thing because of Halloween, but also because of the multiple hurricanes that came through down south in the U.S. And all eyes were on Tampa last month as Hurricane Milton bore down on the community. It was a very serious situation. Luckily, the hurricane downgraded slightly just before landfall, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but obviously it's still a bad situation. And so our hearts go out to those who are still affected by this disaster, even a few weeks on here now. And it turns out that Tampa is the setting for my story this week, but it has nothing to do with hurricanes and everything to do with a mystery.
Ooh, love a good mystery.
Mysteries are fun.
So residents of Tampa, especially those who live, somewhat near the bay, were trying to play the role of Scooby-Doo, if you will, like Scooby-Doo detectives last winter. They wanted to know what was causing a mysterious, deep bass rumbling sound in their homes. It was sort of like sounded like the neighbor had music playing with a lot of deep bass. Now, just full disclosure, we'll kind of get back to that story, but I personally sleep underground, which sounds weird. I'm not a vampire or anything. But when we moved into our current home, it was a change for us. We had always previously had a bedroom on the top floor of our house, but our current home has our main bedroom in the basement. And I thought it was a little weird at first, but it turns out a basement bedroom is fabulous. It stays cool in the summer. It is very quiet. And the best views out our windows are saved for rooms that we're actually conscious in. So I'm a big advocate of the basement bedroom concept. The only interesting quirk that I've noticed is that we do hear some strange, deep noises sometimes. So deep bass noises travel really well through the ground. And when you're underground, you tend to hear them more. And so we occasionally hear these deep rumbles that are almost like subconsciously detected. And our best guess on what the ones are that we're hearing is that there are trains passing by. But the closest train line to our house is not close by. There's no trains in our neighborhood. I actually had to look it up on a map. There's one train line 6 miles away in one direction that isn't used very much. There's another train line that gets used more that is 7 miles in the other direction. So it could be either option really, but 7 miles is a pretty long distance to be hearing not like the whistles and stuff, but literally the rumbles from the trains.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild. We don't hear it all the time, but definitely when you're laying down in bed, sometimes you'll hear this noise and be like, what is that? So interestingly, when we come upstairs and go outside and listen, you cannot hear anything. It's completely quiet. So definitely these sounds are traveling through the ground. And lots of people in Tampa have been hearing sort of a rumbly bass sound as well. And especially like when they rest their heads on their pillows at night, they were hearing this noise. Now, I don't imagine many people, if anybody in Florida, have actual basements like we do up here in the Northland.
Probably not.
So they're likely sleeping on the first floor of their house, and vibrations are coming through the foundation of their houses, up through the legs of their bed, through their pillows, and they're hearing this noise that was keeping them up at night. And these mystery noises seem to be seasonal. Like they would start in the winter, and then we continue to be heard kind of into the spring, and then they'd kind of disappear and pretty much disappear until the next year. But this was happening several years in a row, and the seasonality, I thought, made it kind of particularly interesting. Now, people had a lot of ideas of what this could be. They were, first off, trying to blame like party boats with loud bass speakers out in the water, or maybe other human-made causes.
Sure.
Because it was sort of this music-like kind of bass thumping. And, but you think if it was people out like partying outside or on a boat or something,
Be
probably a
summer
little more
and
likely to
fall.
happen in the summer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than like right in the middle of the winter. So when trying to get to the bottom of this mystery sound, several residents were played something similar to this recording I have for all of us to listen to right now. And when they played this sound, a bunch of the residents were like, yes, that's it. That's the same sort of like percussive bass pattern I've been hearing. What on earth is this noise that's been keeping me up? So I want to play that sound for you right now and see what you think.
Okay.
What on earth is that? What?
Oh, it sounds like a
I
big
mean, I
rubber
could-
band stretched
Yeah.
over a box and somebody like thumping it. It sounds a little bit like some frog calls, actually.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, I could hear that, but I could also hear it being like I could see the party boat kind of problem.
Yeah.
Like it
Doing,
feels
doing,
like
doing, doing, doing.
like
I
a
mean, and this
really
is just
it's
like-
just a deep boom 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 like dance music or whatever.
This is
Weird.
a singular noise. And I will tell you, this is from an animal. But imagine if it wasn't just one, if there was like many of them all
sure.
making this noise at the same time.
Oh my
Those are all good
God.
guesses. What you were hearing is, of course, not, I kind of gave it away, not a distant party playing drum and bass for hours on end, but rather the mating call of a fish called the black drum.
A fish.
Yeah.
Fish have mating
fish.
calls? What?
Yeah. There's a whole group of fish called
Yeah.
drum. And
Why
the
not?
drums, they make a drumming noise. Like all members of the drumfish family, what these fish do is they vibrate the membrane of their swim bladders, and it creates this really deep rumbling sound. And while they can do this anytime for communication, they really get into it starting around January and into the spring as mating season begins. So this is mostly the males that are making this loud drumming noise to basically attract the attention of the females. Now, I think for a lot of us who don't live, near the ocean, who are used to more like lake fish, when I heard about a fish species, or when I hear about a fish species, I usually think or picture something like a walleye or a bass, or basically some roughly foot-long fish. And so you think like, how can something so small be so loud? But the black drum
no.
is not a small pond or
No,
lake
they are
fish.
not.
Oh, okay.
Black drum can reach a length of 5 feet long
Oh.
and weigh up to 146 pounds.
Oh, that's a big fish.
These are not small fish. That is right.
No.
And the drumming, it kind of goes between the range of like 60 to 110 hertz, 1,100 hertz, with most of the energy, though, below 40 hertz. And these are loud as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the fish drumming, specifically black drum, have been measured at 146 decibels
That's
underwater.
insanely loud.
That
so
is
loud.
very insanely loud. Now, I do have to say, sound does travel through water different than it travels through air. So, like, the general formula, though, is to subtract 26 decibels if you want to actually make a realistic comparison between air and water sounds. But that means that the sound equivalent
Still.
to a black drum, that's 120 decibels in air.
That's still
And
really
120
loud.
decibels is known as the pain threshold for most humans.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that loud is painful to listen to, painful to experience, and can cause immediate hearing damage. So picture you're putting your ear like right next to a chainsaw or an ambulance
yeah.
siren. That's basically how loud one of these fish is. Now imagine hundreds of them
Oh my gosh.
all doing this at the same time. It's loud. So
Yeah.
that's what they think has been causing this sound that people are hearing, miles inland in Tampa at night. If the conditions are just right, it's like, what? Who's having this party?
Goodness
Well,
gracious.
it's the fish. The fish are having a party. It's pretty
and
wild.
they're certainly having a party. That is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. That
Yeah.
is
So
fish sure.
oh,
Oh boy, Rachel.
Wow, that was.
I'm gonna just leave the
We're gonna make you
podcast now.
apologize or something for that. That's just. Ooh, that's bad.
Thank you.
I've avoided making jokes about bass and bass this entire time. And then you go and do that. There were a bunch of residents who were trying to like raise money to get some scientists to put hydrophones like underwater to listen for these and see if that's it. It seemed like, I don't want to call it a scam. Like the scientist was like, oh, I can investigate this for you. And he was like a well-known guy who like works with Black Drum. And he was like, if you guys fundraise a bunch of money, I'll put these hydrophone listening stations in and we can try to correlate when people on land are hearing them with when we're hearing them in the water, which seems like a great way to basically crowdfund your research project.
Yeah.
And the residents were like, well, this will prove that this is what we're hearing. And I think their scientist was like, well, no, I'm pretty sure I know this is what you're hearing, but if you want to pay me to do this research, I'm happy to take your money to buy these hydrophones and do them. They did install, I think, 5 different listening stations around Tampa Bay, and I could find absolutely no information. This was last January. No information about any results they come up with. So it could be that they're still gathering the data and correlating
Working
with,
on it.
people's sightings, or maybe even waiting until next winter when this starts up again. So maybe there'll be a little update we can have on the show when I'm assuming this guy writes a research paper about it.
Cool.
Which would be pretty cool. The sound you heard actually, that recording I played was by this guy, James Locasio, who is the one that they are trying to get to put the hydrophones in the water. So
right on.
it was a sound that he and David Mann from the University of South Florida College of Marine Science, they recorded that sound. So it sounds like the mystery of these all-night, thump and bass parties in Tampa have been solved. In reality, low-frequency noises of all kinds can mix together. So there could be multiple sources of deep sounds at night. Like I said, I can hear trains at my house. But given the seasonal timing, the origin of the Tampa rumble is probably just the sound of mating. And unfortunately for Tampa residents, this is one party not likely to stop anytime soon. So they just need to get used to the fact that they have some noisy neighbors. Let's put it that way. So, hundreds of noisy neighbors who make really loud noises when mating for months on end. So everyone's favorite kind of situation with a neighbor. Way to go, Florida. Keep it weird. So my information came from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, UWSF, and the awesome website, which I've used before in the show, Discovery of Sound in the Sea. This website just has tons of recordings of stuff that's been heard in the ocean. So if you want a cool deep dive, no pun intended, go check out this website and just explore around and hear a bunch of the sounds. Maybe some more of them will appear on this show. So that's what I have for this week.
Hey,
Very
Kurt.
cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be another joke, isn't it? Yeah. What do you got?
No, it's not another joke. You beat me to this one. This has been on my
Oh, were
list
you going to
for a
talk
while.
about it?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. That's why I was not surprised. I'm like,
Scooped you.
freshwater drum. Got it.
Great. Yeah, that was on my list. All right. Well, wonderful. Glad I was able to scoop you on that. Tell you what, we'll take a break. And when we come back, Rachel has something that is not drumfish in the ocean.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I debated about whether or not this should be my Halloween topic or if I could go with stagnant water. And I didn't. I went with stagnant water, obviously, if you listened to last week's episode, which you should because it's a Halloween episode. And there's a distinct reason for that. So we've talked on this podcast a couple different times about animals that like to, or not like to, but they have a lot of different defense mechanisms around them. Anywhere from being able to play dead to being able to camouflage themselves, pretend to be a different animal, so being a mimic of something more deadly. We've even talked a little bit about the mechanism that I'm going to talk about today. However, this is one of the most venomous species of this particular organism in North
venomous.
America.
Okay.
It's really unassuming. It's about an inch long. So really unassuming. It blends in. It looks like it has the worst hair day known to man. In fact, it actually has been called that it looks like a cat's fur. It looks like, I don't know if you've ever seen those guinea pigs in like a in a pet store that have like the really crazy hair that kind of sticks up everywhere.
Yep.
It's that, but an inch long little caterpillar.
Oh, caterpillar. I thought that might be where you were going.
Yeah, we've had a few freaky caterpillars on the show before. They can pack a punch.
They absolutely can. So this particular caterpillar is called the Puss caterpillar. I think it's supposed to be
Gross.
like, it's like either pus or it resembles like a cat's fur, so it could be like a puss caterpillar.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not great.
Works both ways.
The scientific name is Megalopyge opercularis. Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
It's also known as...
Looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's also known as the woolly slug or fire caterpillar or a possum bug. Generally it's a brown, downy, grayish white. They often live on oak trees and elms and wild plums. Often can be found as well in many garden plants like roses and ivy. It is widespread throughout the eastern United States, found all the way down in Florida. And so this particular moth is very fuzzy. As an adult, that is what it looks like as a caterpillar. As an adult, it's also a very, very fuzzy moth. It has really fuzzy like legs going anywhere from like a brown beige tan, kind of an ombre effect with its legs covered in those setae, going from like a light white beige all the way down to a black at its what I would call its toes. Pretty fuzzy, not very big.
Sure.
However,
okay.
The fur contains some venomous spines. So those setae are venomous. And they will cause extremely painful reactions.
Don't like that.
Anywhere from... You really shouldn't, because they are one of the most dangerous insects we've got. It leads to immediate skin irritation.
Yeah, wow.
So what ends up happening is if you like brush up against one, the setae will break off and put some venom, and it'll immediately give you a rash. And then that rash will go into a blister. Okay? Most people, and it varies from person to person, but generally that blister can stick around for weeks. Which isn't great. But the thing about the venom is it can be localized, this reaction, but it is generally the venom will give off a pain that has been equated to the equivalent of breaking a bone because of this little inch-long caterpillar.
No. That was not what I was expecting you to say.
Okay, wow.
I was thinking like stinging, burning. Now we're talking bone breaking.
Yikes.
Yeah. it feels like you broke a bone or like blunt force trauma level of pain. And sometimes it's not even
Wow.
sometimes depending on the person, it doesn't even stay in that area. It can radiate up the limb as well. So it often will cause, and this is pretty often that it's more severe than just a localized rash and blister. It can cause anywhere from burning, some nausea and headache. It can cause
That's really
stomach
unfortunate.
distress,
Oh.
chest pain. It can cause difficulty breathing. Welts or hives are pretty common, and you should treat it within the first few hours of brushing up against this particular insect. They use tape to remove the spines, and then
Sure. Yeah.
and then there's some remedies, but it really depends. Like some people will use like antihistamines or baking soda or ice packs and things like that to help, but like there's not a ton of other things that you can do other than just get it out of your body to stop the spread of the venom. Yeah, it's not great, y'all. So it's a really unassuming little moth, little caterpillar. But definitely avoid, because it hurts. Yeah.
How common are these?
They're pretty common. They're up and down the eastern seaboard. They have been found everywhere from all as far west as Arkansas and Texas. It's pretty common to see them because they have two broods, of course, because that would only make things even better. They have a summer brood and they have a winter brood. So, yeah. So they have two brood cycles. So that is helpful. But they're relatively common anywhere from New Jersey all the way to Florida through to Texas.
Wow.
Okay.
So
Clearly not something we have here.
no, we do not have them here in Minnesota, but
Thank goodness.
yeah. Like they're not
I'm okay
very
with that.
big, but that's almost worse because you don't see them until you brush up against them. They look like, generally speaking, for moths and caterpillars like that, just don't touch them. Leave them alone.
This is a time of year when kids love to sometimes jump into big piles of leaves
The woolly bear.
that have been raked up in the yard. And I can just imagine jumping into a pile of leaves and having one of these brush up against your face. And that sounds like a nightmare situation.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not great. So that's what I have for you this week. A very, very painful sting by a very unassuming little caterpillar. My sources this week were, it was a featured critter from the University of Florida and in the entomology department, because it's also called the southern flannel moth. The Fish and Wildlife Foundation of Florida had a great blog post. NPR had a really good article, and so did Wikipedia. That's what I got this week.
I mean, thank you.
I
You're
guess.
welcome.
Forewarned is forearmed.
Oof.
Well, at least we don't have to worry
was a
about
lot.
it yet. So, yeah, watch out spring and fall. Watch for these little caterpillars. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, it'll be Victoria.
Hey, we're back. We've talked from time to time on this show about regeneration, how there's certain
Oh, yeah.
animals that can regenerate limbs
Right.
or even, like most of their body, but how that's really not mostly possible for humans, except for, the tip
Right.
of your finger, as
Give the
discussed.
finger.
Right.
I would
My
like
finger.
to say my fingertips are still around. I didn't go through and test it.
Good. Good. Really don't need to test it on purpose. What if I told you, though, that there was a miracle substance that can regenerate human tissue and heal impossible wounds, that can heal skin that has been severely burned without leaving major scarring? It can heal wounds that otherwise will not close. It can even heal the cornea of the eye when it has been severely
Whoa.
burned or damaged by a
What?
drug reaction, restoring sight where blindness once was thought inevitable.
What?
What if I
I'd
told
say
you?
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. What
Why
if
have
I
we not
told you
talked
that
about
we had
it more?
known, right? What if we had known about these healing properties of this material for more than a century? And furthermore, what if I told you that this miracle material is plentiful, free, and often discarded as trash?
I have
This-
some
Oh,
choice
it's
words,
starting to feel like
Victoria.
Yeah.
often discarded as trash, free and plentiful.
See, Kirk is going through
Is
the
it a
riddle
byproduct
and
of something else?
probably.
I'm trying to figure it out.
You could say that it's a byproduct of something else,
Interesting.
sort of.
I'm intrigued, but I'm also kind of mad.
This sounds almost too good to be true, but this material does exist. It is the human placenta.
Oh.
Now I understand. We have
Okay.
heard about this, and I understand now. Okay, continue.
So there was a recent article in the New York Times, which I read, and I was stunned. But this article is about how placental tissue is used to heal devastating injuries. What's more mind-blowing to me is that these properties have been quite well known for a while, even to the point where in 1979, a doctor in Pennsylvania started a placental tissue bank for use in healing. And I'm just really surprised that I have never heard of this,
No.
because it's
yeah.
exactly the kind
Yeah.
of thing that I'm interested in. And I'd
Right.
never heard of this. So the science behind this is that the placenta is a really unusual organ.
Organ.
It has some absolutely unique features. It's the only temporary organ in the body.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good point.
Yep.
And
Horrifying.
it's of course the
Grow a
interface
whole
between the
placenta.
mother. Yeah. I mean, I think I did talk in another episode about invasive placentas and stuff, so it can get kind of grisly.
True.
But
Victoria's big on the placenta.
yeah, well, it's a really fascinating subject because it has to be this interface between the mother and this alien being inside of her uterus. So it's something that
Entire
the immune
parasite,
system would
yes.
otherwise want to attack. And so like
Right,
one of the
yeah.
placenta's jobs is to prevent the mom's immune system from attacking the fetus. And to do this, it has something that's called immunological privilege,
Okay.
which basically means
Cool.
that it won't trigger an immune response. And because of this quality, placental tissue from a donor can be used on a patient and not be rejected by the patient's immune system. So if you think about
Makes
most
sense.
types of organ donation, like if you need a kidney transplant, a liver transplant, a heart transplant, any of that stuff, anybody who gets one of those, like it's life-saving, it's absolutely amazing technology, but you do have to be on anti-rejection medications for the rest of your life. And anti-rejection medications are basically immune-suppressing drugs. So you need to be super careful about getting sick for the rest of your life, which sucks, but it's better than dying,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But placental tissue is not
Absolutely worth
rejected,
it.
so you don't need any of those nasty drugs. Yeah. And in addition, placental tissue, or amnion as it's sometimes called, is loaded with stem cells and various other types of substances that promote healing, reduce inflammation, and all kinds of good stuff. Yeah, so this has an amazing history. Starting in 1910 is the first scientific paper about the healing properties of placental tissue.
Wow, it's quite a while ago.
Yeah. And over the years, there have been numerous scientific
Whoa.
papers that showed that it's incredibly useful for healing all kinds of wounds. It's good for surgical wounds, things like diabetic foot ulcers and venous insufficiency ulcers that like tend to not want to heal and just stick around and actually cause a lot of limb amputations and deaths. Lots. I mean, diabetes is an epidemic disease in this country, basically. And so that's a huge thing that happens with diabetes. Burns, as I mentioned, it reduces scar adhesion. It reduces pain and infection. It shortens healing time.
Wow.
It also reduces fluid loss, which is a huge issue in burn injuries, especially. Because, yeah, like with a burn, basically it's destroyed your skin, and your skin is what keeps water inside your body
Moisture
for the
in.
most part.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so why is this such a surprise to me and to you guys? Can you guess?
Why is it not used?
Yeah,
more?
why did the use of placenta fall out of favor? And is only
Because-
now starting to become better known.
Because they're attached to babies, Victoria.
Sure. But not after the baby's born. They're not attached to a baby.
Yeah.
Why was it acceptable in 1979 to have a placental tissue bank and not afterwards?
No. I agree. I feel like people look at it as either like the women have the option of keeping it, or maybe we don't allow them to keep it, or I'm not sure.
Sure, but there's a
Good
very
question.
specific reason for that. And that,
Have some kind of disease issue?
yes. What
disease
happened
transmission?
between, say, 1979 and like the early 1990s when
The AIDS epidemic.
ding, 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 ding. Yeah. So that the use of placental tissue really, really dropped off because of the AIDS epidemic. And you can understand why, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's obviously like very full of blood and bodily fluids. But as obviously we're now able to test things for AIDS and other viruses, and it's easier to make safe use of it, it's starting to become better known. It's starting to come back into practice. There's been a lot more research about it. But
Fascinating.
yeah, the current state is
Good.
most placentas are still thrown out as biohazard waste. And a lot of doctors don't even know about what we've been talking about either. However, it's interesting. Like, there's one specialty that has kind of been in the forefront and has now like made routine use of placental grafts for a while now, and that's ophthalmology. So it's kind of a standard treatment for various kinds of cornea problems and injuries, and
I had no idea.
literally has saved lots of people from blindness.
Cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah. And currently the supply of placentas that is used in medical applications is donated through recruitment programs at certain hospitals that have birth centers. And then obviously, like, you're not just taking a slice of bloody placenta right out of somebody's womb and putting it on
Right.
your face.
Right.
Like,
It's after
it's
birth.
processed, it's cleaned,
Yeah.
it's, cut into standard sizes. Like, there's a lot of processing that goes on. But actually, like, a lot of the companies that are collecting these free placentals are then for-profit companies and are,
Sure.
yeah. So a graft can cost $200 to $3,000 per square centimeter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Ugh,
That's not cheap.
insane.
It's really expensive.
And this is all with donated tissue that the people who are donating it don't get any cut for that or anything. Like,
Correct.
And
Yeah. So it's like,
interesting.
yeah, interesting system the way it works
a
now.
medical
As it
procedure.
becomes better known and more common, it'll be interesting to see how this develops. And maybe the idea of a placental tissue bank might somehow work again. I don't know.
Make
It's
it
more of a
come back.
nonprofit kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, I just thought that was so fascinating, and I needed to share it. And
Thank you.
you have to
Thank you.
absolutely.
What a time.
Hope you never get horrible disfiguring burns, but if you do, hope they can put some placenta on that.
I mean, is that the title of this week's show? Put some placenta on that?
It is now.
That or Puss Caterpillar. I'm not sure which is going to be.
Oh, no.
These are the tough decisions I need to make here. You've put me in this situation.
We're glad to put
If
you
you're
in that
listening, you already
situation.
know what I had to choose, but I don't know yet.
It's fun to do that to you, though, Kirk. It's so fun.
Yes, I love having choices.
Yeah. All right.
Bye,
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.